Welcome to the Sprinkle with Hope podcast with your host, Jason. We have an awesome guest with us today, John Davis, and I'd like to introduce him just a little bit. Um, John Davis has lived the life of an action hero. He has been a professional fight director and stuntman for stage and screen, an artistic director of 3 regional theme parks, a sword fighting comedian, which is interesting, we'll talk about, and a motivational speaker, author, and coach. So, welcome to our show, John. We're really excited to have you on.
Well, I'm really excited to be here. We're going to have a lot of fun today, and I'm glad you didn't call me any nasty names in that interview.
No way. So John, do you mind kind of giving a little bit of, kind of your background? You got, all of these things that you've done and, some trials as well that you've gone through. Would you mind talking about, just kind of a brief synopsis on that?
Sure. Actually, all of the things that I've done, and that was a small list of all the things I've done. I've done a lot more than that. I've been in the pyramids of Giza. I've been on top of Machu Picchu. I climbed Mount Sinai, and I've done a lot of really amazing things. I worked in films with Brad Pitt and David Duchovny, all that stuff. All those things happened because of a traumatic incident in my life. When I was 22 years old, my dream was to be a stuntman and a fight director and to have a very, very physical career. I was on my way to getting my black belt in Taekwondo at the time, and I was really working towards that career of being a very physical man. And 22 years old, a friend of mine, and we're going to debate whether he's a friend later because he called me up and asked me to help him unload his van, which that's not really friendly. But that's like asking your friends to come help you move, right?
Yeah.
So he says, "Can you come help me unload my van?" And I said, "Sure, no problem." And he was a professional potter. He had a van full of clay, 80-pound boxes of clay. So it wasn't going to be an easy day. And so I got out there, and at this point, like I said, I was big, I was buff, I had long Fabio hair, unlike this right here.
Oh, I know the
You
feeling.
know what that is? That's a solar panel for a love machine. Anyway, um, but so I got there, I picked up the first 80-pound box of clay, and when I turned to set the box out of the van, my upper body separated from my lower body and I collapsed and was paralyzed. And when I say my upper body separated from my lower body, I don't mean like I split in two, but my spine did. My
Wow.
spine definitely did. Um, they took me to the hospital and they told me I had a condition known as spina bifida occulta, which basically means 3 vertebrae right above my pelvis never formed properly at birth. And when I twisted that day with the extra weight, I literally unscrewed the top of my back from my lower back. And doctor told me that day, flat out, you're done. There's no stunt work. There's no fight direction. There's no martial arts. You will never have a physical career. Start thinking sedentary lifestyle right now because you're never going to have a back that will be able to do the things that you want to do. And 22 years old, hearing that when your only dream is to be a stuntman and a fight director was devastating. And I went to some very, very deep and dark places. Um, and then somebody came in, and some people think it was almost cruel that what this guy did, but he came in and gave me a book called The Tao Jeet Kune Do by Bruce Lee. At a
Mm.
time when I couldn't do martial arts or fights, he gave me a martial arts book, right?
Yeah, it's cruel.
Right? But that book, if you know anything about Bruce Lee, that book was written when Bruce Lee was lying in bed in traction and had just been told he'll never do martial arts again.
Mm.
And so he was literally in the same condition I was. And the book is not about Jeet Kune Do as a martial arts. It's about Jeet Kune Do as a philosophy. And
Mm.
one of the things in there, he talks about mental flexibility. So I started getting into the mindset of mental flexibility. And then I started, because of that book, I really came back to being very firmly in my present moment. And then deciding that no one else can dictate what my present moment is or what my future is. And so I decided that the doctor was wrong. And so that day, lying in that hospital bed, I started leveraging my present moments. And I started going, okay, today I'm just going to flex my back muscles. And I flexed my back muscles. And over the course of a few days, I was flexing my hip muscles, which shouldn't have
Mm.
been possible.
Right.
Shouldn't have been possible. And then it was down to my knees and my ankles, my feet. And within 30 days, I was able to sit up on my own. Within a year, I was back to what I would consider a normal, but normal before I was all buff and strong and having my Fabio hair, um, right? And then at a year and 6 months, I stood on the edge of a 3-story tower and jumped.
Wow.
right, and landed in a pad, all safe and sound. And I went on to do over 4,000 live comedy sword fighting shows all over the world, including the front lines of Iraq and Afghanistan on 6 USO tours. And I've worked in film. I'm an expert in whips, nunchucks, European sword play, Asian sword play. I do Western gun spinning. I had a very, very, very physical career. And then towards the end of my career, I discovered that I still like doing all those cool things, all those
Yeah.
whips and nunchucks and all that. But I also really liked helping people reach their personal peak performances. And
Mhm.
so I had to find a way to marry the two. So I created something called the Corporate Action Hero, where I go into businesses now and using whips and nunchucks in my speeches, I actually inspire people. One of the things that happens, the final thing in one of my main keynotes, I bring the most timid person I can find in the room to the stage. And in under 5 minutes, they learn to crack a whip and take targets out of my hand.
Wow. That's awesome.
And nothing's ever gone wrong.
Yeah, nothing.
That's really cool. Such an amazing story that you're there sitting, the doctor says you're paralyzed and you're not going to be able to do anything. And you're saying, no, my mind is much stronger than that. I'm going to make my mind show my body what I need to do. You had mentioned you're a comedy sword fighter. What is that?
Well, basically, when I was going off to be a stuntman and a fight director, I met two guys who were professional fight directors and like very well-known professional fight directors at the Maryland Renaissance Festival. And they thought I had talent, so they started giving me their training. Well, I also enjoyed the Renaissance Festival. And for those of you guys who've never been to a Renaissance Festival, basically what that means is that for many years I was wearing tights and living in the woods. But I went on. I put together this show called Hack and Slash. We did Renaissance festivals all over the states. That show became very, very popular. And then get this story. You're going to love this one. September 8th, 2001. Think about that date. September 8th. Right. I'm stepping off stage at the Maryland Renaissance Festival, and two guys walk up to us. Hey, we're from the Pentagon. We've been watching your show for years. We love your show. Would you like to do USO tours? So September 10th, we dropped off our packet at the Pentagon. And September 11th, the Pentagon and the Twin Towers got hit by planes. Right. And so they called us up 3 weeks later, because they closed all their offices. They called us up and they said, can you go right away? And that year we went from November through February for the buildup going into Afghanistan. We did a whole bunch of bases in Europe. And the next year we went back, we did Europe again. And then on the third tour, they sent us all the way out to Iraq, Afghanistan, all the stands. There's lots of stands. We actually was only one U.S. base in Pakistan, and it's surrounded by a Pakistani base because it's not safe enough for the Americans to have their own fence near civilians. So we were actually in Pakistan too. So we went all the way out to the front lines of Iraq and Afghanistan. And there's some amazing, harrowing stories from those. I could share with you at some point if you want.
Yeah, I just find it interesting and fascinating, just, that you were paralyzed. And so can we go back to that a little bit and kind of talk about,
of course,
how you got past or through that situation where you were, stuck in bed, probably, I'm assuming, can't really move. So how did you get that into your mind other than just reading that book? Or did you just kind of, in reading that book, you decided, hey, this is what I'm going to do. I'm not going to let somebody else dictate my life, and that's it?
Well, there was a lot. So I also studied a lot of philosophy. And,
okay.
So I was very much into reading the Stoic philosophers and a lot of their thought processes. And I was also, I have a weird passion for studying spirituality as well. And though I was raised Catholic, my mom was very open to let me study whatever I wanted. And when I started seeing correlations in all of them, I started realizing that they were telling us how we create our own experience. So Buddha says, what you think you become, you create your world. Gandhi says, you must be the change you want to see in the world. Krishna says, you are the culmination of your thought. Jesus said, whatever you ask in God's name is granted. But Moses said God's name was I am. So I am is you declaring your present moment. So what I did was I started declaring my present moment the way I wanted to declare my present moment, not how somebody else was telling me I had to. And so by getting real solidly in my present moment and staying right here, and then starting to stack successful present moments. Now, this process took me to a really amazing place. I eventually started studying how neurolinguistics and how the brain works, and
Mm-hmm.
I also went into hypnosis as well. And I started studying how the conscious and the subconscious mind work. And I created a process known as the 5 Fs. And the 5 Fs are a means whereby we hack the fight or flight response. And so for me, here's the example. I'm lying in that bed. The doctor tells me you're never going to be a fight director. You're never going to be a stuntman. You're done. So I mean, that's what he told me. So the first thing that happens is I have a fear response, right? Now, when you have a fear response in general, we all have this natural primal response, the fight or flight response. And when you have a fear response, the first thing you do is you feel like you can't breathe.
Yeah.
Well, scientifically, what's actually happening is not that you can't breathe, it's that your body is conserving air. It's holding air in. Because the second, you know how you've had a thing where you see a child almost fall and you go and you gasp for air,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Right. That's a natural primal response. It's just like did you guys ever watch those National Geographic shows on TV?
Oh, yeah.
Right. Right.
Yep.
Did you see that one episode with the gazelle?
I don't think
It's a joke. They're all with the damn gazelle. What are you talking about? that poor doomed gazelle out there in the field munching away.
Yeah.
Right? And then that predator cat hits the field. The first thing the gazelle does is go and gasp for air, right? It's a natural primal response. Actors are trained that if they're on stage and they forget all their lines, they're literally trained to exhale and relax all their muscles because it shuts off the fight or flight response and gets them back into their brain, and all their lines rush back into their head, right? So it literally is as easy as setting your fear aside, really is as easy as exhaling. But people say, well, I can't just do that. The second thing you have to grasp a hold of is that fear, I ask audiences all over the world to give me the definition of fear, and the rooms always go silent. And then somebody in the back of the room will lean up and go, false evidence appearing real. Right? I hear that crap all over the world, right? Oh, false evidence appearing. I don't know who made it up. It's BS, right? because the reality of it is fear scientifically is an emotional reaction to some future event that may or may not happen with you focusing on a negative outcome. It's just negatively focused uncertainty. And so fear does not live in your present moment. It lives in some uncertain future moment. That's where it's rooted. You're just experiencing an emotional reaction because you're focused wrongly. And so I couldn't focus on those negative outcomes. I had to release that fear. So being able to go, fear. The other thing is if you recognize that you're in fear and label it as fear, you're no longer in it. It is now external. So you can go, oh, it's just fear, and suddenly it's psychologically it's out of your body. You're out of it, and it's in your hand. So that's the first. On the front lines of Iraq and Afghanistan, you have the guys who going into the situation where they're about to have a firefight, or they're going into a situation. I asked them, how can you go into these situations and know that you're going to get shot at or blown up, or how do you do it? And the first thing they said was they had to set their fear aside. The second thing they said was, it's easy for us, though, because we have an objective. We have a goal. We have something to focus on, right? I can tell you from experience that when you're standing on top of a 3-story tower looking down at the pad, you're not focused on the tower. Right?
No, not at all.
Focused on where the hell you're going to land, right? Yep. So you're focused on a goal, the objective, the thing that you're going towards. For me, the doctor had said to me, your goal is no longer there. And I said, no, my goal is there. I am going to achieve exactly what I said I'm going to achieve. Nothing can stop me. And on a real deep physics level, everything you see is just atoms anyway. And the only thing that manipulates your experience is your thought. So just get your thoughts in the right place and start doing that. So those are the first 2 of my 5 Fs. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Or you want me to continue on?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so we got fearlessly focus, right? Now, focus is an interesting thing. You can focus on positive, you can focus on negative. And you guys know negative people?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Have you guys ever noticed that they always have something to be negative about?
Oh yeah.
Right. That's because their conscious mind is focused on negative and their subconscious mind shows them things to be negative about. And that's the way the conscious and the subconscious mind work. You say, have you guys ever bought a car?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you choose what kind of car you wanted before you went to go buy it?
Nope.
No?
No.
Either one of you? Okay. Have you ever bought anything big that you knew you wanted before you went to buy it?
Yes.
Okay. Did you notice that after you made that conscious choice, you started seeing that thing?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And that's true,
Yeah.
right? With the cars too, right? After you buy a car, it seems like you see that car
Exactly.
all over the road.
Right. Your conscious focus hits that choice. Your subconscious mind kicks in to help you achieve it. And if you know how to work your subconscious mind by staying present moment positive, your subconscious mind will continually show you positive things. And so for me, I couldn't get into his negative thoughts, the doctor's negative thoughts. I had to get into my positive thoughts of what I was achieving. And so that's how that was. So I had fearlessly focused. The next one's the core. There's 5 of them, and this is the middle one, right? That's the one that holds everything up on both sides. Faith, confidence, belief. Fearlessly focused with faith. You got to believe it. My kid. You guys ever had Nerf weapons, Nerf guns?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Have those fights all the time.
But I have my son. He's now 17, but back when he was 6, we had a Nerf crossbow. You guys have a Nerf crossbow?
I don't have one of those, but
Dude, let me tell you something. If you're into Nerf at all, the crossbow is ridiculously accurate. And I mean, like stupid accurate, right? and we would have this game where he, at 6 years old, we would sit on our couch in the living room, we'd shoot across the living room, through the kitchen door, and hit the side of the trash can, right?
Wow.
And it would go ping, but that sounds amazing. But you could hit it every damn time, and my 6-year-old could hit it every damn time. So what we did was we made the game harder. So whoever wasn't shooting would stand halfway between the kitchen and the couch with 2 Nerf swords, flailing them up and down like this, trying to stop them from getting through, right? Well, being a good father, my job was to make my 6-year-old win, of course. So I'd get up there and I'd do this. I'd leave the whole center wide open so he'd hit it every time. And then it'd become my turn to shoot. And I'd get up there and I'd shoot the wall and the floor and the ceiling and him and anything but the damn trash can. And my son starts laughing. It was about the 4th or 5th time, starts laughing. He goes, "Dad, I know why you miss." I said, "Why?" He says, "Because you don't believe you're going to hit it." You got to believe it. You can get fearless. You can get focused on any goal you want. But if you don't believe it, then you're not going to make it. Shakespeare wrote in Hamlet, King Claudius says, "Words without thoughts never to heaven go." You've got to put your belief, your thought behind what your focus is. You can say anything you want, but if you don't believe it, it ain't going to happen, right?
Right.
So fearlessly focus with faith. The next one's the hard one, and it's the one that I struggle with. It's follow through. You actually have to do something. You have to actually take a present moment action and do something. And if you're not taking a present moment action, that's because you're stuck on number 1. You're still stuck in some fear stopping you from moving. So you got to get into this. I am just taking an action. Now, the interesting thing about taking action is you only have one moment that you can do anything. You can't go to the store next Thursday right now, and you can't go to the store last Thursday right now. You can only go to the store right now. It's the only moment you have that you can put thought, word, and deed into, right? Here's where people get stuck. They get stuck in this moment, and they look at where they want to go, and it looks so big and daunting and out there, and they think they have to struggle to get to it. But the thing is, that's not the way the brain works at all. The brain says, I set a goal for the next future present moments, right? My past is just a stack of memories of present moments. So I set a goal for this present moment, and then I just start doing things very successfully, small, successful present moments that are in alignment with my outcome. And that big, giant goal comes to me. I don't go to it just because I'm doing small things. These little small things are what bring it to me. So that first day, I just flex my back muscles. I slowly worked every day, just small little moments. And next thing you know, I was jumping off towers and climbing Mount Sinai and, doing all these amazing things in my life, because that moment gave me the opportunity to say, okay, stay very present. In spirituality, most people don't know what the word amen means. Do you know what the word amen means?
Oh, I know this, but it's not, I've heard this really recently, actually, but yeah, go ahead.
Really simple. So be it.
Yeah, that's right.
Right here, right now, it's done. That's what it means. Amen. So be it. So for me, I look at this moment as I am. Now here's where I find interesting. A lot of people get into this whole affirmation thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing the air quotes if you can't, if you guys don't know the podcast. I'm air quoting in my head right now. Affirmations. I don't believe in them. I think they're crap. And I'll tell you why I think they're crap. The word of affirmation means I'm shoring something up that's not solid, which means in your present moment, you don't believe it's solid, so you have to affirm it. I believe 100% in declarations. I declare and I do, right? Here's the interesting thing is when you're declaring something, people declare things all the time. And what they say about their present moment is declarative. I am wanting, I am needing, I am hoping, I am trying. Well, you're consciously creating wanting, needing, hoping, and trying.
Mm-hmm.
I am becoming a stuntman. I am losing weight. I am, here's the way, look at this, affirmations. So the fat guy got 150 pounds to lose. He says, I am a thin man. That's his affirmation, right? But that guy still can't see his shoes. Right. He has a hard time believing that because he doesn't believe it, right?
Right.
But he can sit in this moment and say, I am losing weight. I am walking an extra quarter mile today. He can say those things and make those present moment actions and move it. So we got fearlessly focused with faith and follow through. And the last one was the one we started with in this conversation, not the 5S, but the one we started with originally was flexibility, mental flexibility, right?
Mm.
When something comes up that seems contrary to what you're trying to achieve, your goal is to keep your eye on your target and realize that your subconscious mind is showing you this thing because it's something that needs to be addressed for you to get your goal. Because you're a creator, not something that can be stopped. Your momentum can't be stopped unless you choose it. Your choices today are tomorrow's outcomes. So choose here what you're going to have tomorrow and just keep choosing it.
That's awesome. I love those 5Fs. Those are
5Fs. That's why your audience is. I'm going to give you guys the 5F workbook, and it's a free gift. And
sweet.
If you go to my profile Pod Match, the link is right there for you guys to put in your show notes. Now, I just want, before we move on with the rest of your questions, I want your audience to know that is a free gift. And when I say free gift, I'm not even going to ask you for your email address or anything. It's just a link to go get it. I don't think that my job today is to bring value to you, not to have you give me money or something else. The word action means to create momentum, start a motion, or to do something. The word hero is someone who achieves extraordinary results in service of others. And so heroes don't expect return. And so I live my life as an action hero by serving others and try to bring them the best results I can.
That's really cool. So you've been very busy, John. What are you up to now? What are you most excited about?
Well, it's interesting. I'm most excited right now because right now, COVID-19 was a rough year for everyone.
Yeah.
And these 5Fs that I was dealing with, they helped me through COVID-19 because the second COVID-19 hit, I'm in one of these lovely careers where you go into small rooms with large numbers of people. right.
Yeah.
The speaking industry was kind of like the Marvel blip. Half the speakers went away and all the work. Right?
Yep.
Yeah. It was like gone, right? So that stuff happened. And the first thing I said was, okay, great, this is happening. What can I do right now to make this moment successful? So I immediately upped my game. I built out my studio in my house, my video studio. I'm in a hotel room right now, and I even brought lighting and an extra mic here. But I did that. I started doing online courses. I started doing more virtual events. And when COVID is done, it's going to be amazing because I'm going to have live events, virtual events, online courses. My book will be close to being finished. right? Because I just leveraged the time. But there was a lot of benefits with COVID too. Like for instance, right now I am not wearing pants.
I believe you.
And that benefits us both because I don't have to wear them and you don't have to see it.
Exactly. Exactly. So you just mentioned your book. What are you writing? What are you writing about?
I'm writing a book called "Be an Action Hero, Not a Reaction Zero," and it's all about the 5 Fs and how to leverage a present moment and move forward.
That's awesome. I love that mindset because, Shane and I have talked about, taking action. We totally believe in that. And, it's as simple as, oftentimes when we get up in the morning, we just lay back in bed and we want to pull the covers over and that's done. Right. But the action is flipping the covers off, kicking your feet out of bed and getting up and moving. Right. And that's really as simple as action is. It's as simple as getting up out of bed in the morning. And so, the action steps that you've talked about and, in your mindset, it's as easy as kicking your feet out the bed. All you have to do is do that thing, right?
It's the small moments. It's like the getting out of my bed that, being paralyzed, it was the small moments. It wasn't the big giant, no giant outcome is ever going to magically appear in your present moment. It just doesn't work that way. You have to do things in alignment with it to bring it to you. Here's another thing. Life is about motion. If you're not moving in general, then you're not creating anything in your life that's positive or sprinkling hope, as it were.
Yeah.
Yep. The thing is, if you think about it like this, in nature, water rushing downstream, when that water is moving and full of life, giving oxygen, it's healthy, it's wonderful. Take that same water and put it in a puddle and let it draw stagnant. It becomes poisonous. Bugs lay their eggs in it. It becomes nasty. Stagnancy will kill you. You've got to keep the motion going no matter what you do. It's like you watch these parkour guys doing these jumps, right?
Yeah.
They're jumping. They're doing stunts that as a stuntman, no way in hell I'd do it, right?
Yeah.
Right? Especially not now.
But I hear you.
You look at what they're doing is they're using the motion and the momentum to limit the impact, right? But if you fight against it or struggle against something, you're going to have a hard impact. Whereas they're coming and they're coming to that next situation, they're rolling out of it, right? And that's the way we all need to live our lives. Is we come into situations like COVID, and we need to come into it and roll out of it. And so the year before COVID, and year before COVID, I traveled over 200 days that year.
Wow.
Speaking. And this past year, actually, I'm sitting in Nashville right now. This is the first trip I've taken in over a year. Wow. And it's great. I'm like, great. I'm glad to be back on the road. I'll be happy to, after this is all done, to do half virtual, half live and stay home more.
Yeah.
And, stay out of my pants longer. You guys are fun. I'm glad I can laugh with you. Some podcasts, they're just like, well, tell us the scientific blah, 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 blah. Yeah, shut up.
Yeah. You can see we love to laugh.
Oh, laughter is good medicine.
That is the key to life, And people ask me all the time, how can you laugh so much? I said, because I find life funny. I just find life. People say the stupidest stuff, and I go, "What the hell did you say that for?" Right? It's just funny. Or like, one of the things I talk about follow through. You're making these successful present moments. We talked about that. Yeah. But every so often, you mess one up, right? When you mess it up, you go, "I'm so stupid. That's why I'm bald, because I kept smacking the hair off." Right? And what's interesting about it is in the course of getting out of that bed, I came to a new philosophy about having those mess up moments. And the philosophy is they're just silly.
Yeah.
Right? When I mess something up, I go, that's silly. Why? I'm not doing that. I'm doing this. And I went back to it. And then when somebody comes along and says, you can't do something, I go, well, that's silly. I can do whatever the hell I want. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Henry Ford said, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right.
Yeah.
So that means the leverage is on you to think it. And so just think something funny
Yeah.
and laugh about it.
Yeah, I've loved this conversation, John. It's been really fun and enjoyable, and you've given some really great advice, and for that I'm grateful. So we've come to a point in our show that we call it the double down dose, and so I ask a question and she asks a question, but we created this acronym called Hope, from Hope, HOPE, heart, overcome, passion, and being enough. So what is your definition of heart, or what would you say about heart, having heart?
Having a heart. Well, your heart is your fire. Your heart is your experience, but the heart lives in your. This is going to sound very esoteric, but it lives in your love. The Apostle John one time said that God is love, and so if you're living a spiritual life in any form, you're coming from that place of heart. The reality of it is, over the past several years, our society has lost a lot of that heart, and we need to start seeing people for who they are. I have traveled to 30 countries around the world, and I will tell you this: every country I've ever been in, I've been treated like a prince. I've been treated lovely, but I treated them that way first.
Yeah.
I one time had one of the best compliments I ever got was from a fellow performer who I truly admired. And I had a comedy partner, and this other guy comes up. He says, "I got to tell you something, John." He said, watch your show." He says, "And your partner comes on stage, and he works hard for 20 minutes to get the audience to like him." He says, "You walk on stage, and they love you immediately." He said, "Why?" I said, "Because I love them first."
Yep.
He went into it looking for them not to like him. I went in there loving them first without even thinking about it. That to me is what heart is. Putting your compassion, your love out to everything and everybody. That's why I do what I do.
That's really cool. So you'd mentioned something about love. The second part of Double Down Dose today for you is, how would you define love?
How would I define love? Well, I define love as the essence of everything. Because I believe God is love, and I believe God is everything. And Einstein, when he started studying his science, he discovered that everything is made of atoms. And if God is love, and and God is everything, and I live in God's image, then God has to be love, right? How would I define love? But I think that here's an interesting. Now I'm going to get really deep on you here for just a second. Please, I hope you guys don't mind at all. But
please do.
If you do, then the hell with you. I believe that God is love, and I believe that we are here to experience our fear. And it's like, imagine being in a world made of love, and that you are standing there with a giant fog machine with your hand on the knob, and you can turn your fog of fear up so you can't see love, or you can turn your fog of fear down so you can see it. But we're here to experience it because of the fact that you can't measure or experience anything without knowing the opposite. And so that is why that's why I believe we're here. I'm not going to ask anybody else to believe what I believe, but that's my belief.
Yeah.
So I believe that we are here to experience that love and love of everything. Here's something I do want to say. We live in a predominantly positive world. Most people don't think that way. But I live in Akron, Ohio. Cleveland, Ohio is 30 miles north. If I commuted to work every day, I would probably pass 1,000 cars on the road. And maybe once a day, I might see a fender bender off to the side of the road. Maybe once a day. Probably not even once a day, but maybe once a day. So tonight on the news, the fender bender is going to be there. The anomaly.
Yeah.
What should be the headline on the news is that 999 cars made it to work safely without a problem, right? Our world is predominantly positive, and not only is it predominantly positive, it is 99.9% predominantly positive. And so you need to break out of this concept of focusing on the negative and really get focused on the fact of the good things that are going on in the world. My travels through the Middle East, like I said, I was in Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan. I met wonderful people. Yeah. Americans and nationals from those countries.
Really cool.
That's awesome. I've really liked this conversation, John, and I'm so grateful to have met you in this way, and glad that you're sitting down and I don't have to see you without pants.
I can stand if you want. It's like a Papa.
Oh no, you're good.
Yeah, John, thank you so much. You really have had some fantastic insight. I'm really excited for the things that you've shared and strongly believe all of the things. So I think this will help me as well going forward in my life to overcome some of those things that I might fear and just move on. So thank you.
Let me also just throw one thing in here. You know, I very deep into my spirituality, and I did start a spiritual podcast, which is my super secret spiritual podcast. um, but you can find it out there. It's called Spirit Cafe Podcast, and it's just me and another recovered Catholic talking about spirituality.
Very good.
Cool. Well, thanks for sharing today, John, and we sure appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. It's been really fun, guys. Thanks, and thank you for not standing up too.